No.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
No, you didn't.
I did.
You won it.
Years ago.
That's so cool.
I know, right?
Well, yeah. What did you?
Right.
What was the prize?
So let's get back to the subject in hand. Hi everyone, I'm Matt Sullivan. I'm the Managing Director of BIMA, and we're the proud partners with Bupa, who ran the research around health and wellbeing for specifically SMEs, and we're here to discuss the research. Thank you to YouLife for hosting this today, really appreciate it. Loads of really interesting data on the back of the research, but we're here now to get under the skin of a few areas. The areas are going to be hybrid working, we've got some really interesting insights there, and then we're going to talk about what employees are looking for in terms of the career path of businesses that they want to work in. And lastly, we're going to finish off with what we all need as leaders of SMEs. So the first area is hybrid working. And for me, this was the most surprising part of the research. I really didn't expect this. So hybrid workers are suffering in terms of their well-being and their support in comparison to fully remote and fully in the office workers. And Ali, I know you were also quite surprised by this part of the research. Can you just explain a little bit about why that is?
Yeah, I guess so. My surprise is that from the majority of research that a lot of industries have taken, hybrid working is definitely the favoured choice in terms of a working style and preference. A lot of people who are currently in employment are looking for flexibility. And I don't think leaders have quite figured out how to create healthy structures around hybrid working that are truly effective in a collaborative way where creativity and innovation can thrive. So I am surprised that people are still struggling, but I also feel like there's still a lot of work we as leaders need to do to create healthy systems.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that you're kind of neither one nor the other. You've got a foot in each camp when you're a hybrid working. And so it's very hard for the employers to know what systems to put into place. You see the headlines of large agencies taking away hybrid working and mandating numbers of days in the office. So there's almost this insecurity that perhaps some of the employees might feel of, will this be around in a few months' time? Will this be around next year? So then how do you plan your life? How do you put your life structure around that?
We were about 50 people at the beginning of COVID. And then we exponentially grew in a time when we were hiring people when the expectation was different. And I think now, because there isn't a rule book and there isn't a playbook, as there previously would have been, there's a lot of confusion, and people adapted to this new way of working, of flexibility. And so for us, I think communication has probably been the most important aspect to being able to evoke this sort of culture of trust and really guide people in a way. I think a lot of people are a bit lost and a bit confused.
I mean, I kind of think about my son actually, because he was this is through COVID. The whole experience of lockdown for him was very, very difficult, you know, like it was for a lot of his friends. I think that's part, for me, that's definitely part of the backdrop. If you're talking about, you know, sort of younger Gen Zs who are just coming into the workplace, I think they will have been through the experience of COVID, and it had such a huge impact on them developmentally in terms of their social skills and the rest of it.
When in the days when I was part-time and I did have a hybrid role that I negotiated for myself, and everyone still expects you to do the max of both sides of the coin. So there's not that you're being pulled in different directions. So there's, communication, I think, is like the most key thing. But I guess it's still a challenge if the feedback is that people are struggling.
What happens if you're not in an office? Are you missing out on the opportunity of being promoted? Are there little cliques that open up? So I think that employers are having to learn new languages and seeing problems that they didn't even know would exist.
My own personal experience is not about age. So I'm a single parent one week and I'm on my own the other week. So hybrid working with 3 kids holds its challenges. My well-being definitely takes a dip that week. The next week I'm on top of it. So there's no bespoke blanket solution. So Robin, I'd like to bring you in here if I can, because when it comes to offering a solution around hybrid working, there's no magic.
I think there's some common things which hybrid workers tend to present with more than others, and we can see that in our data and from the feedback that we get. So that's things to do with particularly like musculoskeletal problems. So quite a lot of back problems, neck problems, wrist problems. People at home, we can often see that they haven't got the correct ergonomic setups. They haven't got the same desk and chair that they would in the office environment. And that leads to numerous other difficulties. So often people aren't exercising. I know from my own step count, I can often only do a few hundred or a low number of thousand steps during the day, compared to if I walked to the train station, went to the office, I could easily hit 10,000 without even thinking about it. And then there's other things like eyesight. So if you sat down in your home environment, you've not got that long distance vision. You're there doing things at close range a lot. So people tend to end up with eye strain, with headaches, with migraines. So you've got this mixture of sort of clinical presentations that tend to play out as a result of working in a way in an environment that isn't conducive to full health and well-being. Because the last thing you want to do is actually delay someone accessing care and support when they need it. So as much as possible, we in Bupa try and reduce those barriers to entry to make it really easy and seamless. So we've got things like our direct access service where you can access care without needing to go and see a GP first. So I think things like that are really important, that people understand what those services are, what they can deliver, and how they access them.
So we've got a lovely eclectic mix of businesses around the table today, and I'm sure you're all doing different things to support hybrid working. So share some of those experiences if we can. Jay, we were chatting earlier. If I can ask you, first of all, what you're doing at launch.
We have weekly learning sessions on a Wednesday. So we have Bupa, the all singing, all dancing insurance policy for health. But honestly, they're very intelligent people, but getting them to actually access that service can be challenging. So the point you raise is really important, making that really easy for them and making it part of everyday conversation. So we do learning sessions around it. Then the leadership model that behaviour. So when I claim for my glasses prescription, I shout out loud about it and I say, it took me 3 minutes from start to finish. This is how I did it.
Great. So getting buy-in is the challenging bit. Yeah. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to?
Yeah, and I think just on a foundational level, what's been really important is how do you build this culture where people feel like they're part of a community and connected in a hybrid workforce? So every Monday morning at 9:30, our CEO does a talk. It's an inspirational talk. It oftentimes has a wellness connotation. It's about a book he read. It's about micro habits. It's about, how to prevent any sort of mobility challenges if you sit at your desk too long. And we're giving little kind of tips through that. Everyone in the business joins that. It's 15 minutes. Gets everyone aligned. Complementing that are your support services, your mental health services, your coaching. But I think at that foundational level, the business needs to advocate and believe in a value system that helps support people regardless of where they are, hybrid or remote.
So Jay, earlier you were talking about the app and getting people to download it. So there's a lot of innovation. So Sim, can you tell us a little bit about what Bupa are doing in terms of innovation?
Yeah, Bupa are taking innovation and technology at the hands of people really seriously. We do a lot of user research. We want to know what the users want behind the app. We are putting more and more pathways behind our app, right? Whether it's a GP practice, advanced nurse practitioners, mental health, you name it, it's there. There's more and more wellbeing content. We've got classes, mindfulness, other variations of those classes that people can come back to the app for. We've got so much stuff behind our app, and it's in your palms, it's in everybody's palms. So when you're having those sessions with your employees and telling them, it would be really good if you can just demonstrate some of that as well, saying that, okay, right, have you checked out this app? Because this has got more and more content, more personalized content. And so, yeah, a lot of good work's happening, and it's a very busy time for Bupa.
So next up, we're going to talk about attracting and retaining talent and how talent is seeking support around health and well-being. We've got a massive gap in what people are looking for when they're looking for a job and what employers expect.
I had no idea. I thought it was really surprising that now that I feel informed, I can make those changes. In my next recruitment round, we'll carry on still being very detailed on our values, which does really help get the right people applying. But now I can make sure that we're not missing the trick and really emphasising the benefits that we do have. Actually, I'm really surprised that people would take lower pay to have those benefits for their health and wellness.
Yeah. And I think, in the advent of change and as the world is evolving, probably in the last 6 months more than we'd ever seen, but definitely in the last 10 years, the responsibility of the employers has enhanced to be much more personal, that the duty of care is not a checkbox, and it's about everyday support. And so essentially, how are we now making sure that that gap doesn't exist in terms of expectation aligning? Because actually the talent want more than the leaders recognize.
Agreed. And it's a competitive marketplace, I think, for talent. So the industry that I work in, with SMEs constantly battling to secure the best talent, I'm seeing talent come to interviews asking in first round, second round interviews what the company's stance is around their maternity policy, what is their stance around support for fertility issues, so that the whole stretch around the competition and being connected to talent and their demands is really something that employers are really going to have to sit up and really listen to and pay attention to, because it's not just about the box ticking basics, it's about the extras, and each extra has real value.
I think it's almost table stakes now. To offer these things is table stakes. If the person doesn't feel well supported in their well-being or health, or they do have health issues and they don't feel like they can take the time off to address them, then it's a problem for company performance. I also think that leadership need to understand talent isn't just the department of HR. Culture and well-being is everybody's responsibility.
I think the point about HR is really important, and the way that HR, as a practice and as a discipline has needs to evolve and is evolving, because HR can often think like, well, am I going to be fired, or is that some kind of disciplinary thing, which obviously is a function, but I think it needs to sort of broaden out quite a lot, and HR needs to be at board level. I mean, that's the bottom line. That should be well represented at that level. And if you're a smaller business, it's hard because people wear multiple hats. Like yourself, a small business, you're having to kind of wear that HR hat as well. But even at that level, it's probably worth thinking about what that role actually means and how it's kind of changing over time.
I definitely think from an HR perspective and a leadership perspective, I think leaders should always think about their people. If we're running people businesses, it is a natural instinct to care about your people and the people that you want to build a business with. I agree with you. HR does get a bad rep. I agree that HR doesn't always get the power to influence. We have so many stats available to us that tell us that mental health is a crisis. Industry censuses telling us that 33% of people who are currently working in the advertising, marketing, communications, digital industry are currently suffering from stress. And that's just mental health. We're not talking about physical health. So I think leaders really need to sharpen up if they're going to continue to be competitive, if they're going to continue to be successful, to really build flourishing businesses that can make it through.
My reflections as to what's happened within, I think, the environment around healthcare and people's knowledge of health and well-being, I definitely think that's in a different place now to where it was even a few years ago. So there are far more digital services available. There's more health information available. We've got influencers in the health and well-being space. So I think that's really helped to shift people's mindset around what's acceptable and what they should have access to. So it doesn't surprise me at all that talent and potential job seekers are looking for this when they're looking for potential employers. Just the number of people that actually have long-term conditions. So about 36% of people are self-identifying as having at least one long-term condition. So effectively having a long-term condition, it's normal. It's not something that we shouldn't be expecting. It shouldn't catch us by surprise. So again, I think that's something that we just need to be considering, and the different needs that they've got and the different ways that they want to access those services. I certainly think the digital aspect of that has had quite a significant impact, and I suspect, Sim, you've got a few thoughts on that.
Absolutely. We can see that, the younger generation is more open to talk about their mental health struggles and stuff, and they're obviously more tech savvy. So they want to come towards the digital solutions to come have a look at getting some help. There are phone numbers, mental health practitioners that they can speak with. There's content that they can review. I know in all of your spaces, your employees or your colleagues are struggling with these issues. We draw from their experiences, and we have those things available for them online. And absolutely, there's so much help available through digital solutions, and that's what the technology should be. It should be there to help people bridge that gap and, just be there for them all the time. That's their friend 24/7.
Lastly, it's going to be about us. It's not just employees and our staff that we need to look after, we need support as well. So this is specifically about leaders of SMEs. There are only a third of us that get adequate support.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I'm part of a network of founders, and actually quite a few of them are exited founders. They often exit because they reach burnout and they have no choice. It's a really, really lonely place at the top of the mountain. Even if you achieve all your business goals, if you haven't built up that network of support and you don't look after yourself, it's then a very long, slow walk down into the valley. So I think that it's really, really important that we open up this conversation.
I agree with you on the loneliness, and loneliness is probably one of the biggest risks that HR has. We just underwent mental health training for managers. So anyone who manages more than 3 people were encouraged to do a full day mental health training course. And one of the things I think that I took out of that, and we actually did it yesterday in a team meeting with the leaders, is really actionable every day. And it was a temperature check. So if you go around the room and you ask someone, how are you feeling? Green, yellow, orange, or red. At the moment yesterday, I was in a yellow because I felt I was away with my kids on the weekend and I couldn't shut off. That then prompted the next person to say they were orange. And this is someone who's quite proud, and wouldn't have normally said that because she doesn't want to disappoint. So I think this pulse check in a very human way then enables you to have those conversations. I subsequently checked in with her more yesterday. I said, is everything good? How's your day looking? Can anyone else help you? And I think that it's those micro moments and those little steps that do make a big difference.
So the research shows that there's a big divide, right, between people that find it easier to be open around these subjects and some that find it quite challenging. Anybody got any advice to those that are finding it slightly more challenging?
I think sometimes leaders feel when they run a business, they have to have the answers for everything. And they have to know everything. Taking a brave step to be vulnerable, I think, is something that I would encourage all leaders to really lean into in terms of being able to share as much as they can, but also have some level of boundary too. Boundaries, I think, are one of our biggest challenges in terms of the leader being passionate about what we do, but also having a life outside of work and making sure that that balance is a delicate one that's respected is one of the critical things I think will help all of us around the table as leaders role model how we deal with holding it together.
The nature of my business anyway, we're in that sort of mental health and kind of wellbeing space, so we're already kind of cognizant and conscious of it. I'm definitely open, but I think it's also really important, like the little things, that we do as lead, ask somebody, what did you do at the weekend? How were you? That type of thing. That's important, but it can't just be sort of by rote, So if I have a conversation with somebody, say, "Oh God, what did you do at the weekend?" I actually listen, and you make sure you kind of engage with them, and it's that kind of it's being kind of authentic about it, so that you really engage and you listen.
Active listening
is
absolutely super important, and actually coaching is a really interesting way, because the point that we're trying to make here is, what can leaders do to look after themselves? You learn to ask open-ended questions and you learn what it is to be vulnerable yourself. It helps you then understand your team as well. So investing in yourself, I think, is important. The learning and development budget isn't just for your employees.
I'm always really open about the fact that I have therapy, right? And I know it's a simple thing and it can sound a little bit, odd to some people, but I think that's actually really powerful. I think advocacy and kind of leading by example has got to be the way. But I can see the balance though, because the problem is, obviously, as a leader, you want to be able to instill confidence. What you show them is that you're managing it, right? And that's a really important tool towards achieving that, really.
I'd say it is a challenge, I think, particularly when you're like my agency, with a micro agency. So I am the HR. And then, so I try and also model being open, but there's certain things that I wouldn't want to be open, because then I'm worried, I don't want my team to then be worried unnecessarily, because it's, it's fine. Things will be okay. So there's some areas, like financial probably, or like, risks that might worry some, whereas it wouldn't worry me because I kind of understand the entire picture. So on that side, that's where the loneliness, I think, comes in. It's a difficult balance to ride.
So maybe delve into some practical steps that we can do, and it's probably a good time to bring you, Robin and Sim, in to talk about what Bupa can do as well.
I think we should reflect that leaders are just like everybody else, so they are at the same risk of suffering from health problems, mental health problems, needing some time off as their employees are. So we shouldn't overlook that or play it down or try and mask it. Bupa's got a very strong proposition in the mental health and well-being space. So in terms of cover for conditions and accessibility and support for long-term conditions like anxiety and depression, very much got a really robust offering in that place, together with mental health support teams and a family mental health line. So lots of really great ways that people can quickly access help when they need it. And then looking at things like our workplace wellbeing hub. So lots of really great tools and resources there to help support your team's wellbeing, how to implement workplace wellbeing strategies, things of that nature. These are things where you can help learn from best practice. You can implement things which other people have found beneficial. And having a few of the tools, I like the example of the traffic lights. Having a tool like that up your sleeve, something quite simple, but actually it allows you and other people to get engaged with that. And I think that's a great way of both getting your organisation engaged in it, as well as maybe being an avenue for you to open up about maybe what's going on at your own level as a leader.
Building on Robin's point about looking after yourself as a leader and looking after your people, it's really important for leaders to look after their health and well-being as well. So I lead a big team of 100, 150 people, and I speak with them individually and, try to listen to them and understand their issues and resolve some of them with them, for them, and, sit together, have open conversations about my struggles, my family struggles. We talk about all of that openness, vulnerability. In a digital age, our landscape is huge, our remit is huge, our reach is immense, so just making sure that we can reach out to more and more people, understand their issues and understand their vulnerability points or pain points, and helping people is enabling that digitally is such an important aspect. Like, I've got two girls who are teenagers, they ask me a question, and when I answer to them, they go and validate that online where the mums answered it properly, right? So I'm like, I didn't have that. I didn't have Google when I was growing up, but it's that generation that's coming up, and that's why we need to have these things available and be approachable digitally. Ultimately, it's down to individuals to reach out to you and for us to look after our own well-being as well. So for me, staying healthy, staying active, all of that is important.
Right, so we're there. I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And thanks to everyone for being so open. And before you leave, I'm going to go around and ask something that you've learned today that you're going to take home and help grow your business.
Can I be cheeky and have two things? One, I definitely love the green, yellow, orange, red. I think that's so good because everyone has a different language. When one person says, yeah, I'm okay, it can mean something very different to what another person says. And then obviously in my next recruitment round, and even with my current team, really talking to them a bit more about the health and wellness support that we have.
The stat about the hybrid, more people struggling with hybrid work was eye-opening. You're already investing in an office. Actually, you do need to invest in the home as well.
Like, I've got a huge team. I'd reach out to them randomly and make sure that they're happy, they're okay, and obviously point them towards all the good things that we already have in place, and making sure that we have got healthier and happier employees.
The 70% stat that you shared with us in terms of leaders who are not taking care of themselves. And so when I work with leaders, I'm not going to make the assumption that they're doing this already, and I'm going to make sure I have the conversation to really inquire about what support they have around them.
I think the point that you made actually about young people using tech to validate what they hear and how they interpret the world, and how that new cohort is coming into the workforce, that's what their expectation is.
So yeah, I like this because it feels quite a normal thing to do for BIMA, because we represent tech and digital, but it's about people. Websites don't build websites, apps don't just build themselves. It's our personalities. We're behind that innovation and that tech. And if we're not in a good place, then it impacts everything that we put out into the world. If we don't look after the people behind that innovation, there's something really wrong. And we obviously are, we care. So it's a really good discussion. Thanks, everybody. That's it. We're done. Thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you've learned as much as I have. I really appreciate you giving up your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.